Hello, I'm David Hunt, and welcome to The Art Hunter. My guest today is a lover of the arts. No, that's all wrong. He's passionate about the arts, and that's what I love about him. He is just so involved in the arts. He went and learnt to be an actor in his early days, and did musicals, plays, TV series, and then became an agent for the youngest agent in Australia, with over 300 artists on his books. You know, like, what does that say about the man as well as a young man? Independent producer. He's had success with Fiddler on the Roof, with Topol. Hello, one of my favourite films of all times. And What If I Were a Rich Man? What a great show. Hair, Amadeus, Evita, just to name a few. It goes on and on. And then a producer of many films. I'm sure we'll probably speak about one or two of them. A global entrepreneur, and founded the Vass Theatre Group and the Alex Theatre, which we film here, and thank you to him for the filming here. And he continues to dedicate in producing quality, high quality theatre for us all and supporting the arts all along the way. Alec Vass, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and thank you for what you do for the arts. I think it's a wonderful thing.
That entree was so good, I was looking around to see who you're talking about. I didn't pinch myself. What was that mean?
No, it's you. So where did the interest come from?
It's really, people ask me a lot. From my family, my mother's Slovenian, my father's Serbian, and my uncle was an actor. He actually did over 40 films in former Slovenia and became the head of the largest television film company in Slovenia for many years. He ran that company. So I think I believe that interest came possibly from him, because I've just had a love of the arts since I was a child. Since I was young.
Okay. And when did you first take the step? Was it when you did acting classes?
No. Actually, at the age of 13, I took myself along to an ad. For an ad, I saw an ad in the paper for an ad wanting young kids, and we're living in Perth at the time. And I got on a bus and went to the audition and won it.
And your parents didn't know?
No. And then I got home and I said, I've got this thing. And my parents were very, very ethnic, and I got paid a little bit of money. I did the ad, and did the money, and then I got into Oliver. I did Oliver, and I played Oliver when I was younger, and I played the Artful Dodger when I was later on.
Oh, wow.
But I took myself along to those auditions myself when I was 15, because I always had this love for the arts. So I still remember clear as day that standing there and singing "Where Is Love," and then hearing them say some nice things. I thought, oh my God, maybe I'm okay at this. But I always had this love of wanting to perform.
Yeah, and how good is that musical, Oliver? You know, that some of those songs are just amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, they're amazing. In fact, we won't talk out of school, but we're looking at doing a reimagined version of Oliver in the next 48 months.
Whoa.
Sorry, 24 months. We'll be doing a reimagined version of Oliver.
Because it's the film was made, and which was a wonderful film, So it's there as well. But I always love to see. Can't wait to see.
The other day, I've got two young daughters. I've got a 12-year-old and 13-year-old, and they're both love the arts and performance. In fact, they're in Fiddler on the Roof, which is in this theatre in a couple of weeks' time.
That's right.
Both playing the two youngest daughters. But they did a dance concert version recently of Food Glorious Food, and I went, wow, that show just hits the heartstrings, and it was wonderful then. It's still wonderful. We just have to sort of bring it more to life than it was before, and that's why I had this urge to reproduce the show again in a new version of the show, because I just love watching the kids love it. They enjoyed it so much.
So, here you are. You've been involved in so many projects, Alex. I think it's wonderful, and it's also varied. And you move from one to another. You're like the theatre owner to producer. And film as well. You've been involved in film. What's the film industry like to be part of?
The film, look, I have a partner called Kate Whitbread who's just absolutely wonderful. In fact, she would hate me saying this, but we went to high school together. That's how long we've been friends for. Her father
She hates you today.
Yeah, her father is Oscar Whitbread, the famous director. And Oscar, I don't know, he's produced over 6,000 hours of television before he passed away.
Gosh.
Of television and film in Australia. And so we grew up together and loving film from school. We were at school together loving film and because of her father and television. So film, I got attracted to film because it's another medium. And more so, we're all about producing things to make money, to produce more things so more people can get employed. And also hopefully producing something that's a legacy. Kate and I have produced a number of films in the past, and we've got 2 doozies coming up in the coming 18 months. One phenomenal film called The Wolf of Rostov, which we can talk about in another episode. So it's just about combining mediums to create work, employment for our own staff, but also for people in the industry.
Yeah.
And the other thing is raising money. It's all about where do we get the dollars from, Many years ago. In fact, there was Dick Pratt that said to me one day, "Stop asking me for money." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Stop asking, get your own." He said, "Then you can do whatever you like." And I said, that was about 25 years ago. We were at the football together, Melbourne. I remember the match, and he said, we were in the box and talking, and he said, "What are you doing now, Vass?" Because we finished Fiddle on the Roof and stuff like that. And I said, "I want to do," he goes, "Don't ask us, get your own." And I said, he said, "Have you got something?" I said, "Well, I actually have a family business and we're about to, catapult soon." And I said, "Oh, well," I said, "if I can act being a producer, I can certainly act being a business owner and producer." And we had a business which actually grew into 70 countries in a very short period of time.
Whoa.
And within about 8 years, we're in 70 countries. And we had over, at our height, 12, 14 years ago, I think we had 16,000 staff at our height.
Wow.
And I was based out of London. But I was based out of London on purpose because then I could see theatre and film and meet people and fly to New York when I needed to be involved with shows on any level.
Yeah. But what's it like, Alex, like being involved in, say, over my shoulder is a shot of, and we'll talk about it now because that story you told me as you were sitting on the couch when we were waiting. Yeah, tell us that story.
We have a good friend of ours who knew Chaz Palminteri, who's the guy who wrote and produced with Robert De Niro A Bronx Tale. And so they suggested that, that Chaz would want to come to Australia. But so I said, "Look, I'll go see him." They go, "What?" I said, "Now. Just organise it for next week." So I got on a plane in New York. This was only 3 years ago, just prior to the pandemic. I got on a plane and Chaz had organised for me to go. The Bronx Tale, the musical, was playing on Broadway, and it's a fantastic musical. It's a mixture of Jersey Boys does West Side Story, and it's not the big musicals. No. It's a really good sized musical. And Chaz explains it. I'll watch him talking to the cast. I arrived on one of the opening nights, and Chaz actually came that night and introduced himself to the audience, who went berserk because Chaz Palminteri came out. And he said, and he mentioned, "I'm here to visit my friend Alex from Australia is here, and I've got to go now because we've got to go out and do some things." And so I went backstage and he introduced me to the cast and the crew and everybody. And I can't tell you the warmth. This is very, very rare. There's some great people in life you meet, but he's one of those people that's just so generous. You can tell automatically. Yeah. And Chaz owns a restaurant around the corner called Chaz's, which is always frequented by everyone in the arts because they go to Chaz's and everyone that wants to see a show. So after we went to talk about the show, and Chaz, the reason we're doing that is we're finalising Chaz to do his one-man version of A Bronx Tale here at the Alex. So, and not only will he do that because he loves teaching, we're going to do some classes with him as he's going to teach some classes. So Chaz does.
Is that happening?
Yeah, so that'll be happening in the coming year.
Whoa.
And Chaz will be doing the one-man version of A Bronx Tale where he plays all 30 characters himself.
Whoa.
And he's just done a Broadway run where he's just sold out.
Okay.
And he's toured the States and he sits in big auditoriums, but we're doing it intimate. We're doing it in our 500-seater, which is much more logical because it gets that feel like you're inside you're inside his world. But the show is phenomenal. And so I said to him, how did you come up with the show? How did you come? It's a true story. The story of Chaz in The Bronx Tale, of him playing, and he played that lead role, was that he actually was the kid that saw the murder happen and didn't talk. That's a true story. And so he was at drama school and they said, "Write a 15-minute piece about your life." So he came and did a 15-minute piece of what he called The Bronx Tale. Yeah. It was so good, they said, you need to write some more. That's pretty phenomenal. So by the end of drama school, he'd actually written a 45-minute piece. And when he left drama school, he didn't have any money. So he staged a 90-minute piece, basically, with an interval. So it was probably about a 70-minute piece of The Bronx Tale, where he played all the characters. There was lines around the block for this little studio. And he was approached by people from Hollywood who said, the guy said, I'll give you 250 grand for the rights. I want to film it. And his father said to him one day, if you don't feel it's right, don't do it unless you get what you want.
Yeah.
And Chaz was broke. And he goes, I can't do that. Unless I can write it and co-produce it, I can't do it. I want to write, and I want to play Sonny, the character Sonny. I said, no, you can't do it. We're going to go to Hollywood. We're going to get some stuff. He goes, I can't do it. And about a month later, there's still lines around the block, and they've come back and they've offered him 500 grand. And he said, am I going to play the role? No, and he said, I can't do it. Finally, they arrive one day, and they offer him, I'm giving the shorter version, $1 million. And they're at a restaurant. He said, I'm $1 million. I've gone into the toilet. I'm sweating, and I just remember my father. And I pulled out a note. It was in his wallet. He showed me what his father said to him, and said, "Don't do anything unless, you really believe it's right for you.
Yeah.
Just the right thing will happen." He said, "Can I play the role? Can I?" And they said no. And he goes, reluctantly, he said, "I've got to say no." And a couple of weeks later, he was in the foyer meeting people. And one of the tech crew comes in and said, "There's somebody waiting for you in your dressing room." And they said, "Who?" He said, "Oh, Mr. De Niro." He said, "Mr. Robert De Niro?" He wants to say hello.
Hey.
And he goes and meets him, and Mr. De Niro said to him, "Look, I want to make this a film." He said, "But can I write it? And can I play something?" And Mr. De Niro said, "Yes, as long as I can play the father."
Hey.
And direct it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yes." And in a year, that film was made.
Wow.
And it received its Academy Awards, and that really kicked Chaz off as and he was brilliant, and he played that something that was absolutely brilliant. I can still see that role. But they're just great stories, true stories.
Yeah.
And they've got a lifelong friendship because Mr. De Niro directed the musical version, stage musical version of this show of Bronx Tale, which hopefully as a musical will come to Australia as well when the time is right.
Yeah.
Because we've got so many other shows coming on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was it, and they're just wonderful. And while I was in New York for that week and a half, every time he'd ring me late at night. "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just leaving Hamilton. I've just met a couple of people. I'm just going to." He goes, "No, I've got someone I want you to meet at the restaurant." Okay, every night. "What are you doing?" It just like he's a friend.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, he's got a driver. I think his name was Gus. It was like a storybook mafia. He's the driver with the husky voice, with the big limo. "Yes, yeah. Chaz told me to pick you up. Chaz told me you're going to need to come. You need to come now." "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll get in the car, no problem." But it was like that. But he was just a friend who's his driver,
Have you ever thought of writing these stories? Like there's a book in what you've got there.
It's hard. Look, I've lived a very varied life, and people understand that. There was a time when 12, 14 years ago, I was based out of Libya and North Africa with Gaddafi, and he was my partner for 7 years. Gaddafi was, and so were some other people in that area. I was in Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Niger, Sudan. I've seen it all. I'm still in one of my businesses is still in North Korea, so I've done the hard yards. But I go to those places because if it was easy, everyone else would have done it. But I think that my drama school training at National Theatre Drama School when I was a kid helped me get through these things, because you think people, how do you get through that? I remember having Mr. Gaddafi's officer call me and say, "Mr. Gaddafi wants you to come and talk to Parliament about the changing face of Libya because you're the only survivor." Because I was the second guy to sign a deal with Mr. Gaddafi after sanctions were lifted, and I was one of the last to leave. And lucky I wasn't in a box, but I was one of the last to leave, and I survived those years when the turmoil, when the Arab Spring came. I survived.
Whoa!
No, I was in intensive care for the last 6 weeks of that.
Yeah.
After some incidents in Libya, but that was part of life,
How fascinating! But also terrifying, was it? Or were you getting buzz off?
I wonder sometimes if I said to someone whether I was slightly naive, but there's
okay.
I'm a trusting person, but it was tough. I mean, it was cowboy territory, and Mr. Gaddafi was doing something phenomenal for me. He was spending $200 billion on infrastructure and rebuilding a country, and other influences stopped all that. The country was safe. You could walk the streets. There was no Al-Qaeda in the area. Everything was a different place. It was a wonderful world. Everyone was making money because things were moving. They were building hospitals and schools and universities and underground railways and new airports, and all of a sudden it just stopped, and the place is in turmoil. You know, so I was at a time when it was at its high and a time when it was at its low, and there isn't much I haven't seen in those days. But it was all for the sake of making my money, so I could build my own theatres and do my own shows without having to ask someone for money. Yeah, you know, I have a goal in the end, and that was to be able to, you know, give back to the arts. Yeah, you create,
and you have so much you've given back to the arts. So tell us about why did you get involved in this theatre? Why did you?
It was an accident. It was Malcolm Cook, producer Malcolm Cook, who we love, who's done so many things for Australia. He's an amazing producer. And Malcolm approached me one day. We were in my office, and he said he saw a book on my table called Sexercise, which I wrote with a friend of mine, two friends of mine, as a joke. It became a coffee table book, and it sold really well. It was about how many calories you lose during the acts of making love. And they're actually facts. They came from me in a higher university. We thought that was funny, so we produced it into a comedy book, and it sold one year. Really, it was huge. We were making money off this little book, coffee table book, and I think my mother was the biggest buyer. I think she thought it was a colouring book because it was trying to. Mum thinks it was a colouring book, but it was. That book and Malcolm said, I think I can turn that into a musical. And I thought, how? But anyway, he 6 or 8 weeks later, he turns up with a guy called Derek Rowe, and Derek wrote a musical called Sexercise, and it was very smart. He actually didn't write about the book. He used the book as a catalyst within a story, and that story was about relationships, current. And it was, I got teary. I couldn't believe how good this script was. I thought, this guy wrote this in Australia. It was I said, we're looking for a venue, and I couldn't find a venue. And finally I stumbled across this place, and it was for rent.
Because it used to be a cinema.
It was the Palace Cinemas. Yeah. And then another guy bought it, and then a developer bought it called Shane. And Shane bought this building to put into his superannuation, and he was going to develop it into this fancy apartments. And I sort of knew him through friends. I said, look, I'd love it. He said, just rent it. So I rented it. And then after spending $18 million, I went, in a very short period of time, like trying to renovate it. I had to buy it. I had to buy it straight away. So we bought it. Yeah. But then we grew so much, we bought the front of the building. Then we had to buy some downstairs to make sure we had, you know, space for people to come up. Yeah. And it's been a journey. It's been a tough journey too, because we don't get any. There's no relief from the arts for us. It's all funded by myself and my family and my wife. Yeah. Our family funds this as much as they can.
And COVID as well.
And COVID knocked us out for 2 years, and it's been tough. And if anything, we held on to the theatre. You know, I always say I'm always spending my children's inheritance. But we all love the arts, and what can we do to give back? No.
But the fact is, you're just not stopping here now. You're talking about future projects that you're bringing in here, and you're getting a team together here now that of the insight that's happening. You know, like I'm around in the office a little bit, and what I'm hearing is so exciting.
Yeah, we've got lots. We're trying to. Even though things are bleak in the industry, and you know a lot of the big shows are closing, they're not making their money they should be making. There's new shows out there that aren't pulling in the dollars. People are still a bit reluctant to go to theatre. So what we've got to do is try to make it affordable. So we're trying to put, as we have done here in the past, we've produced some fantastic shows here. Number one major Broadway shows are Bad Jews. We did Charlie Brown. We did A Hand to God. These were major plays in the West End and on Broadway, and we've produced them here at a cost of $70 a ticket, not the 150 or 200. So we're trying to. We've got a very famous. There's a musical called The Grinning Man.
I was just about ready to talk about that.
The Grinning Man is fabulous.
You showed me a photo a couple of weeks ago.
The Victor Hugo novel.
The stage looks amazing, and you're going to replicate that.
Yeah, we're trying to do more immersive theatre. People come in and they go.
Who wrote it?
It was Victor Hugo.
Wow.
It was it was Les Mis. It was Mr. Les Mis himself, and he wrote this amazing book. The Grinning Man is basically a macabre story where someone cut a smile into a boy's face, and he lived with this smile, and it's a love story about this young man. But it's macabre, but it's fantastic. And the puppets are from the guys who did Warhorse, so there's puppets involved as well.
Wow.
But the arts, so it's macabre, but it's for children and adults. So we're trying to bring new theatre, something that people haven't seen, because there's a lot of rehash shows as well. I mean, we love the rehash shows. one thing I love is that no matter what anyone says about theatre, and we used to have it from Jeannie Pratt when she ran the production companies, they employed people.
Yep.
And this industry is very tough because when you do a show, you employ technicians and musical people and directors and choreographers and designers and actors, and you're employing people. And what we don't have here is this, we're not as big as some of the other countries when it comes to that. Melbourne is really the theatre capital of Australia. We are, and we should be always. Sydney's trying to knock us off. They build another theatre, and we should always be looking at enhancing what we're doing here. But we're trying to keep this place alive to keep the shows affordable to people. So the Greeting Man, an average ticket price will be $65 to $70.
Wow.
For a Broadway show. We're talking a West End show,
Yeah.
a major West End show we staged here, and it'll be in the intimacy of a 500-seat theatre, which will be an immersive event as well. You feel like you're in the show.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to create, is something different. We're looking at doing a series of musicals next year, of potted versions of the big musicals. Everyone's gone the other way. They've done the bigger version. They've done the huge stadium tours of things like Superstar. But no one's brought them. I thought, well, let's make them intimate. Let's put people inside the musical. You know, there's a great musical which we hope we get, and it became a massive hit. And it was Sweeney Todd in the Pie Shop, and so Cameron McIntosh saw it and bought the shop next door to one of his theatres. And you actually were in the Pie Shop, which is a musical.
Whoa.
So you were actually in the musical. So when they dragged the bodies across, they actually dragged them across in front of you. So they would drag the bodies in front, and they were singing on the table next to you, and you got a pie, and you got the pie, and you got ale as well during the show. And that we're trying to bring sort of something different to theatre in the Alex as well, so that people have a different experience, but not an overly expensive experience. We're trying to bring the cost down because budgets are tight and money's tight, and we know the economy's going, everything's going up, all our costs are going up as well, everything from electricity to you name it. So we have to try to bring the cost down so people can go, okay, a family of four can see a show for just over $200.
Yep.
Whereas I know when I bought some tickets for some show recently, it was $800 or $900 for four of us. And you go, wow, that's expensive. So maybe I can go to theatre once every 6 months if I was a punter. You want to be able to come 2, 3, 4 times to see a show, other shows, by only paying $200 or $300, and you go downstairs and have a meal for $50, $60 at a pizza place, and you've had a fantastic night out with the family. Yeah. But it's just getting people here to do it, and this is our 10th year here.
Oh wow!
We're into our 10th year. We've finished our 10th year. Officially, our anniversary will be next year. But we're into our 10th year of being at the Alex Theatre.
But Alex, what I love about you is your enthusiasm and your love and your passion. As I said, like you're passionate about the arts, and it shows with how excited you are about talking about it.
You know, I grew up doing shows and as a young person, and I took myself along shows. But I've seen it from the ground up. I've worked in theatre companies where I've made sets and costumes, and what I'm very excited about is my children are going through that at the moment. They're working in some non-professional theatre companies. They're only 12 and 13, but they're loving the arts.
Okay, you're not pushing them? They're doing it themselves?
No, they asked me to audition.
Whoa.
They've asked me, one of my daughters went to another audition the other day. She just asked me for help at the audition. Yeah. Dad, can we go through these songs? Can we do this? You know, they're so dedicated. One of my daughters, both my daughters, on Saturday morning, I drop them off at 7:30, 8 o'clock at dance at May Downs, and they finish at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then on Wednesday nights, they go straight from school at 4 o'clock and finish at 9 o'clock. And dance, they do tap, jazz, acro, and there's no, if they don't want to do it, they don't have to do it, but they just feel, my wife, Susan's an ex-ballerina, so it's hopefully in the blood.
It's in the blood,
But I love the community, there's a community. Yeah. And I'm trying to explain to people that when you're playing a sporting team, you've got a community there. Yep. And the arts is it's a different style of community. But, you know, I've got friends from theatre from when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, that I still see at shows. You know, they're doing shows, and a couple of them are in this Fiddler on the Roof show that I started when I was 16 in shows in Melbourne. Yeah. And I want my children to feel that wonderful embracement. I was watching them at the end of the rehearsal the other night, and I thought, oh, look at the way the cast are treating them, like family. Yeah. Arms around them, how I, you know, and that's a camaraderie you don't get in certain different fields. That's what I love them to see.
Over your shoulder is somebody that's universally loved, Graham Norton. You're being photographed with him. How do you know him?
Look, funny enough, it was Rhonda Birchmore that introduced me to Graham.
And she's in the photo as well.
She's in the photo, yeah. Rhonda was doing a one-woman show at a friend of mine's theatre in London. And she said, oh, come. And I said, I want to introduce you to some other people. And she introduced me to Graham. We sort of became, it was a group of us, we became really good friends very instantly. And I kept begging him to come to Australia. I said, any way you want, anything you want, we'd love you to Australia. We'd do a tour, you just have to sit and talk on the couch. You know, I said, we've done those before, and I'd love, you to come and just be you. And he goes, no, I don't leave. He said, I find it difficult to go from my home to the theatre. He says, I said, well, because I'm lazy. I just love it here. I've got my dogs. And I said, why don't we bring Australia to you? I said, we'll talk about that. And this was just prior to COVID. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, we'll work a way of doing the show from Australia over here. You don't have to come there, but we'll integrate it somehow. We just want you on camera. Because I said, I don't think you know how loved you are. I said, you're probably in my lifetime one of the foremost talk show hosts in the history for us.
Yep.
I mean, you've interviewed so many people on so many levels, and they love you. You're warm and inviting. I've seen so many superstars say it's the best interview show I've ever been on, next to Art Hunter. It's the best interview show I've ever been on. And I said, we just want that warmth that you've got, the humour that you have, and and every time he sees me, I just saw him a couple of times straight after that. He goes, stop producing me, Vass. I said, I'm just asking. I'm hoping that one day you'll say yes. So I said, I'm just going to keep bugging you till you say yes. But he was just a warm, inviting, wonderful person.
He seems that.
What you see is what you get. Him in public or anywhere is what you see is what you get, and he's just one of those people.
Yeah, I could imagine. Now, your poor suffering wife, because you at home you would be just as busy in talking and how does she cope with somebody like you? Because you said she was a ballerina, and now her kids are getting involved in theatre. She must be going, what have I created?
No, don't she? Susan's actually, I got married later in life and had children later in life because I was very busy doing things.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'm very busy doing things. And it wasn't until Maddie was born, which was in London, and that was the end of the era of Libya, that you change your perspective in life. Your children change your perspective in life. And it was then, but Susan rode with me everywhere. She travelled with me around the world. We had homes, at one stage we had home in Malta, Libya, London, and the States. We just, I lived on a plane because of our business interests. And I get excited. I get very excited about a good business deal. I've come down now. We've sold off some of our businesses, and I'm spending more time trying to concentrate on what I can create in the arts.
Do you spend much time at home though?
Yeah, no, I do now. I didn't before. When we had UK residency, and Susan had to write down how many times I entered and exited the UK in 2 years from the airport. Yeah, 264 times in 2 years. I was in and out, sometimes twice a day.
Whoa!
In a short period of time. That's how much time I was on a plane, because I was off everywhere. And I had this. It's a long story, but we'll explain to you later how it happened. I had a title of Lord Alexander as a joke, and it turned out to go a little bit overboard at one stage, because there was a mistaken identity, me as Lord Alexander, and everyone knew me as Lord Alexander. It was my nickname, but it became. And I was with Gaddafi in Harrods, they've got a beautiful Lebanese restaurant there. We're having lunch, and Al Fayed has, when he owned Harrods, he has facial recognition photography. As soon as the Gaddafis were there, he knew, so he'd come down with his entourage to say hello, and he'd come running down, and I was introduced to him then. But I knew Dodi. I knew his son in the early days, and Di. We spent some time together years and years ago, and I was introduced as Lord Alexander, and I said, I didn't know. I know all the lords. I don't know you. And this was Mohammed Gaddafi Dam, who was the nephew of Mr. Gaddafi, and he said, no, he's He's Lord of the Jungle. He's conquered Libya and all of North Africa. You must know him. He goes, no, it was a joke. And so before I knew it, they went down and took my Harrods card and all my cards and changed it to Lord Alexander. And next thing I know, everyone knew me as Lord. It was a joke. But I tell you what, I was upgraded. Everywhere I went. It got to a stage where there was a very funny story. I landed in Dubai, and I always stayed at the Taj Palace. I love it there because it's non-alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, but non-alcoholic hotel. So there was no messing around in that hotel, which I love. And I arrived there, and they rushed me up to the Royal Suite. And I said, no, this is like 50,000 a night. I said, no, I don't think so. I said, just my regular suite will be fine because I get a great. I've been going there for 7 years, and all my staff stay there. And no, they said, no, Lord Alex, this is for you, Lord Alex. And I said, no, this is a lot. And the butler's, it's 1 o'clock, my butler's unpacking my bag and he's putting all my clothing on. And I go, whoa, wait a minute. Where's Mr. Gurov, the manager? Oh, he's back in the morning. I said, can you hold on a bit? Because I don't think I'm staying in this suite. And the next thing I know, they said, no, I had no choice. It was too late. I went down to see the manager. Mr. Gurov was coming next morning. So I thought, I'll get up next morning. And next afternoon, I had to fly to Kuwait to meet the royal family for something I was doing. And so next morning, I got up to see Mr. Gurov. And he said, oh, you're so humble, Aleksandar. But before that, I found a letter in the study, in the suite, addressed to His Royal Highness, Lord Aleksandar. I went, oh my God, I'm going to get caught here. I'm going to get caught for fraud.
Yeah.
This is a mistake. And what happened was, Aleksandar Vassilievich, which is my full name, is Prince of Serbia.
Ah.
And they assumed, because he'd visited Australia recently, they put two and two together and got 5, right. And said, oh, he's a prince, he's a Serbian prince. No wonder they just call him Lord Aleksandar. He's Prince. I go, no. And he said, well, I couldn't work it out. How did you get this Royal Highness? He said, we Googled you. And I said, I'm very good at keeping under the radar with everything I do, especially in the countries I work in. And he said, no, we Googled you. And I thought, and he goes, and I argued for a while, and I thought, you know what, I'll accept the week for free in the Royal Suite. It was for free. It was the letter was from the head of Taj Palace Hotel saying, you've been here for 7 years, complimentary for us for this week. And I went,
yeah.
So I rang Susan, I said, can you get to Dubai? I've got this whole suite for nothing, you know. And so the next day, and I said, oh, by the way, I've got to go to Kuwait this afternoon. And I'll be back later on tonight. They go, just leave all your stuff. Doesn't matter if you come back the next day, leave your stuff here. And when I Googled it, I found Aleksandar Vassilievich was in Australia. They think I'm His Highness. And I tried to explain it, but they didn't accept it. I just accepted and enjoyed the week as an imposter at the Taj Palace. But I'd spent a lot of money there, and I'm a big tipper. Yeah. And so they knew me very well. And I do laugh with a lot of people. I enjoy, the company. I make sure I know all the managers of the hotels.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Now, back to your wife again. You mentioned her, say, get here. She's a bit of an artist.
And she's an amazing artist. I'm very biased, but I think her art is phenomenal. Yeah, she just won the she got second in the highest prestigious dream artwork in the US just recently. She's very humble, she won't tell anyone. And the woman that won actually said if Susan didn't win the People's Choice Award, I would have had to give her first. And she's very, in fact, next time I'd love you to see some of her art.
I would love to.
It's just quite, I'm very biased, but it's out there.
I haven't been able to find it.
Oh, and I'll give you a website.
Okay.
Because she won't sell any, I've got all the paintings. So people have offered lots of money for some paintings. So we've made prints recently of some of the paintings and given. One of them hung in Parliament House for a while for an exhibition, and everyone wanted the painting, and she said no, so she made a dozen prints and gave them to parliamentarians as a present.
And what sort of style of art does she do?
It's dream works. I mean, I can't explain to you. She dreams them, and you'll see they're three-dimensional. They're detailed three-dimensional work. Yep. They're very three-dimensional.
Well, she has to do something because you're so busy that.
Yeah, I know she does, and she finds.
I'm joking.
Yeah. She finds herself busy too. I mean, with the kids, with our two girls, there's always something to do. I'm fortunate enough that I can actually spend time with my children. That's why I have them later. I can go to take them to school and pick them up. Yeah, that's my joy for the day.
Yeah. Alex, again, thank you for who you are. You're a very, very special person in this world, in the arts. So thank you so much.
I still have to look around when you say that. You're talking
and we've got to get you back another time because there's so many more stories I want to talk to you about.
Love to. I'd love to. Look forward to it, actually.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm David Hunt. You've been watching The Art Hunter, and we'll see you again next week. See ya.